to your KLEK 102.5 forecast. Mostly cloudy skies expected today, a little bit of sun in the low 70s, slight chance of a shower. Partly cloudy overnight, 50 to 55. Lots of clouds expected Wednesday and Wednesday night, scattered showers expected. The high Wednesday around 68, and it'll be about 48 Wednesday night. Thursday, partly to mostly sunny near 70. Jonesboro, that's your KLEK 102.5 FM weather.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Catherine Drew. Police in Canada are continuing to question a 25-year-old man who drove a van at pedestrians in Toronto, killing 10 people and injuring 15. Officials say the motives of Alec Manassian are unclear. A fire believed to have been started deliberately has killed 18 people at a karaoke bar in southern China. And North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has expressed bitter sorrow after a bus plunged off a bridge, killing 32 Chinese tourists and 4 North Koreans.
It's 9:01.
KLEK LP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. It's now time for Community Conversations, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place, while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday to you. I hope that you're having a great start to your day. Thank you for tuning in to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Kabila Jones, and my special guest today is Ms. Jessie Bricker from Arkansas State University. She's the OTA Program Director. Thank you for joining me this morning.
I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
And so this is not her first rodeo, but I would like for her to please give us some background information about who she is and what she does at Arkansas State.
Sure. I actually was in practice as an occupational therapist for about 16 years before I came to Arkansas State to be part of starting this occupational therapy program that we have there. I've mostly practiced up in Illinois, and then moved down here with my family. I have 4 kids, and my husband's down here with me. And so we really enjoy Jonesboro, and we've been here since 2015. When I started with the program, I was in charge of securing clinical opportunities for our students, and then I moved up into the program director's position for the OT assistant program. And so we are in the process of graduating our 3rd class. They will be finished in August, so we're really excited about that.
That's awesome. I can't believe it's been, I won't say that long, but the program has been.
I know, me either.
Because I remember when the program first started, I met, I guess, the first director. But that's been almost 2+ years.
Yes, I think it's been a little bit since we were here, but yeah, our program is doing well. We have a new program director for the doctorate level program, and our department chair, she started last July. Her name is Dr. Christine Wright, so she's over there as well. We are right now we're the only occupational therapy department in the country that has both an accredited OT assistant level and entry level doctorate program in the same department. So we're kind of unique in that way. But it works really well because our OT assistants and our registered OT students, they get the opportunity to work in a collaborative team before they go out in the community to practice, and so we think that's really important.
That's really awesome. Hopefully you all can utilize the new house that the social work department has purchased or has gotten. It's basically a simulation home where students can go and practice before again they go out into the field working with real clients. They get to do run-throughs.
Yes, we actually have been over there doing some simulated work in a few of our classes, so that's really exciting, and we're really fortunate to have access to that home. It's been really beneficial.
Well, thank you. So I want to go ahead and get into our topic of the day. And as many people know, April is Autism Awareness Month. And here at KLEK, we like to do what I call go beyond the ribbon. Not everyone. Some people get involved. They wear the color ribbon, the t-shirts, but there's so much more to it than just that. You know, it's great to show your awareness of an health or social issue, but we need to dig a little deeper and learn as much as we can about it so that we can be better educated, so that we can advocate for someone that we know and love. So I want to get into, autism. I know it's such a broad topic. So I hope that we can get as much information in today as possible.
Sure.
So let's talk about, I guess, the overall term autism, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, autism is a really complex kind of pattern of behavior, or people even characterize it as what we call a neurobiological disorder, meaning that autism is not really like other developmental disorders, and that it can affect many different aspects of a person's life. Some people with autism have very mild forms, while other people might have more significant forms that really impair their ability to function on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
And no one really knows what causes autism per se, but recently people who study autism and people who have autism that are able to tell us about their experiences really are trying to reframe how we think about autism and talk about it more as just what they call a natural human variant, meaning that all people are different and all people have strengths and weaknesses, and that autism may just be a different way of thinking about someone's particular strengths and weaknesses. And so that can be really important, I think, because if you're just thinking about if someone is impaired or not able to participate, what are those barriers to that, and how can we help them just function in daily life, but not try to really change them. So kind of thinking about it less as a disorder and more of just a difference.
Okay. Let's talk about, there are different ends of this. People that have been diagnosed with autism can fall at different levels or places on the spectrum. There's no one person that is just like another.
Right.
When it comes to autism, it affects the individuals differently. One thing I saw, I've been doing some reading on, started last year. Usually autism is, how can you say? Okay, the ribbon for autism looks like a bunch of puzzle pieces that come together. And so what I gathered from my reading was that there's different individuals that come together to make a whole. In essence, no one person is different, but they still all fit together perfectly. And I probably did not say that as eloquently as it was written, but I hope that you get my gist.
Yes, I think that's true.
But I would like to talk about the different levels or the different areas, on the spectrum. And
sure. So within autism, if we looked at all the people who are diagnosed with autism, just a little over half of them have little to no cognitive impairment at all, meaning that their intelligence level is just like any other person. And then there are some people who are on the spectrum who also have some form of cognitive impairment too, meaning that they have trouble thinking or maybe even putting their words together or making sense of things in daily life. And so that's kind of where that spectrum piece comes in. When people are referring to the spectrum, they're usually referring to someone's experience of autism as it might impact their ability to think and process information and have some difficulty maybe with learning or something like that. And so another aspect of the spectrum is how much difficulty someone might have with communication. So we think of individuals who are on the higher functioning end of the spectrum as people who have more verbal language ability typically, though that's not always the case. There are many people who are on the higher end of the spectrum we would consider not at all intellectually impaired, who still are not able to use verbal communication as their primary form of communication. And those people might be very successful using technology in order to communicate. So they might use an iPad or they might use their phone, or they might use another device that has what we call voice output, the ability for them to put a message in and then have the device itself speak for them. And so just because someone is not able to verbally communicate does not necessarily mean that they have any type of cognitive impairment. And I think it's important for people to know that, because sometimes people just assume if someone can't speak that they're not able to think, and that's not always true.
Wow. I have actually witnessed that. I know a child, when he was younger, he simply just would not talk. I mean, he talked to who he wanted to. Then other times if he just wasn't sure of who you were, or he didn't really care for you, he chose not to. But if you, again, like you said, give him an electronic device, he was a master.
Yes.
And could master any level of whatever he was playing. So he displayed a high level of cognitive, behaviors. It's just he chose not to speak to you if he didn't want to.
Right.
Oh goodness. Okay. Now there's another. I guess I don't want to call it disorder. Please forgive me for not, knowing the politically correct terms.
That's okay. I think that we're all still trying to navigate what those terms are.
Yes, because I never want to offend anyone.
Sure.
What is the politically correct way to say? Should we say a person with autism or autistic person?
That's a really great question, and I think it's pretty much still up for grabs.
Okay.
Most of the information that's coming out now, and there are several very articulate organizations that we call self-advocacy organizations. So there are people that have autism that are vocal about their autism and want to help other people understand autism better. And most of them, not all of them, but most of them have taken back autistic as an identifier. Somewhat like, you can kind of liken it to the deaf community.
Okay.
People don't really think of deafness. They think of it more in terms of a different culture rather than a disability, and I think that that's kind of the direction that people are kind of moving within the autism community as well. So it used to be that we always would advocate for person first language, and I learned that in school. I'm sure many, especially people in my field, clinicians, have learned that in school, where we want to say individuals with instead of putting the disability or the disorder first. But in this case, self-advocates have really taken back that term and are proud of their autism, and so it is in some cases appropriate to say autistic individuals. And most people who have autism don't take offense to being called autistic, because they identify with that as being part of who they are.
Okay. All right, so you tuned in to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM, and I'm speaking with Miss Jessie Bricker from Arkansas State University from the Occupational Therapy Department, and we're discussing autism awareness and trying to help break down, what this disorder is, so that hopefully you can gain more understanding, so that you can be able to better deal with or interact with people that you come across that may have autism. Of course, we never want to think of any of our family or friends developing this disorder, but unfortunately they do. So I would rather you be equipped with the information and education than not, so that you can interact with them more proficiently. One thing I want to ask is this, and I'm going to go back to my original question, because I'm looking at a list, and I'm looking at Asperger syndrome.
Yes.
I know that's one that's talked about quite a bit, but before I get into that, I want to ask first, with autism, is it something that is diagnosed early in life, or when
Sure.
is it diagnosed? I guess that'd be a better place to start.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the individual. And obviously, like many other conditions that we diagnose them through a set of behavioral characteristics. So there is no blood test. There is no brain scan. There is no one definitive way to see, yes, and this person is going to have the characteristics of someone that has autism. There's no way of knowing that. And so we base that diagnosis on a set of behavioral characteristics that comes from the Diagnostic Statistical Manual put out by the American Psychiatric Association. So with the Asperger's thing you were talking about before, that was sort of like a subcategory of autism that we used to diagnose, and now it's included actually as part of the spectrum. So we don't actually see people be diagnosed with Asperger's disorder like we used to. We consider it all part of the autism spectrum. So that's a difference that you might encounter. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yes.
but it's essentially based on behavior and a set of symptoms, and those are usually centered around what we call social communication, pieces of social communication. So the ability to kind of like sit here like we are and have a conversation back and forth.
Okay.
Some of the nonverbal characteristics of communication, so someone's ability to use facial expression or eye contact, or to get someone's attention to something using nonverbal body cues. Those kinds of communication skills are included in that. And then we also look at restrictive and repetitive patterns of behaviors or interests, which are more what we think of maybe as those self-stim sort of behaviors where someone might have some overflow motor activity like rocking, or they might flap a little bit, some of those things. But it can also talk about intense areas of interest.
Okay.
So people sometimes will have, things that they're very interested in, and those things are usually some of the same things that all people are interested in, but they might express that interest with more intensity and more frequency than the typical person. They like to talk about the same thing a lot and know everything there is to know about it, which is kind of cool.
Well, they will do well in some type of field where they're having to do research or something.
Yeah, I like to think of those as more like superpowers.
Okay. Now, for parents with children that have been diagnosed with autism, would you suggest that they, and I know the word support groups get thrown around a lot, but support groups are really essential depending on what you're dealing with. Would you suggest that parents join a community of people, other families, so that they can get a better understanding on how to deal with things? I've known families that have children that have acted out in a sense.
Sure.
And it was very random and unexpected, and it was to the point where it was frustrating for the parent as well as everyone else around them. And the parent was new to it all, so they're frustrated. Then you're trying to explain to other people what's going on, and so you're doubly frustrated. And it's like, okay, you just want your child to sit and be quiet, but they can't, or they're not capable. So would you suggest, that parents join a community of other families so that they can find some support?
Absolutely. I think that raising a child with autism, which I have 4 kids of my own, and one of my children is on the autism spectrum as well, so I have personal experience with that. And I think that it can be a very isolating experience when you're going to be out in public and your child might not fit into what everyone else is doing, or they may not be able to follow some of those hidden social rules that we all have about certain places in public or things like that. And I think that school can be challenging too, figuring out ways to navigate how much of a regular education classroom your child could benefit from, or figuring out ways for them to get engaged in things that all kids like to do that help them build those social networks like sports. Those can be really important things that I think all families have to kind of navigate their way through, and that support can be really helpful.
Do you feel, and again from a parent's perspective, do you feel that the school could do a little bit more to help introduce the students to these different disorders? Because kids can be really cruel when they don't know what's going on. I watched a video about a child, and it was of course like a advertisement type deal, but the child had Tourette's, and the counselor took upon himself or principal, I apologize, took upon himself to host a, what do you call it?
like an assembly.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, and he made it more public, and he put the little boy in a situation where he was able to talk about it, so that you can see the kids' faces kind of, toned down, and they have a little more empathy for him versus making fun and bullying him. So I don't know, just one way around. But do you feel that schools could do a little bit more?
Well, I think it really depends on the child.
Okay.
Not all autistic kids, really want to talk about it. Okay. Some kids are not maybe at a point where they really identify with being autistic or what the benefits and drawbacks of that might be. But I think that in general, if administrators and teachers kind of think about their kids on the spectrum, just like any other kid in the classroom that has individual strengths and weaknesses. Some kids are not very good at sports, and some kids are not very good readers, and some kids are, extremely good at one thing and have a weakness in another. And just to frame it in such a way that helps the classroom, the classmates that are with that child understand, well, everybody has things they're good at. This person might not be good at making eye contact with you when they're talking. That doesn't mean that they don't have something really valuable to say. Okay. And so, just kind of framing it as personal traits and characteristics, I think, can be really beneficial, because diversity is what makes life interesting.
Okay. Well, we're coming up on our break here, so I don't want to get too deep into another conversation, but we're going to continue our conversation on autism. And for those of you out there who have any questions or comments, please give us a call, 870-277-1080, or leave us a message on our Facebook live stream. We'll be happy to try to address, Ms. Bricker will be happy to address your questions and comments. You're tuned in to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these announcements.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
What mistakes have I made in marriage? I'm Mark Merrill with today's Family Minute. I'm so grateful for 25 years of marriage to my wife, Susan. She's awesome. But I can tell you that I've made plenty of mistakes in my marriage. Here are 8 of them. Mistake number 1, thinking that Susan was responsible for my happiness. In my early years of marriage, I felt like an important part of Susan's duty as my wife was to make me happy. I was a bit more focused on me than us. Mistake number 2, wishing Susan would be more like me. Unfortunately, in my younger years, I thought pretty highly of myself. So much so that I thought Susan should be more like me instead of celebrating her unique strengths. For the rest of the 8 mistakes I've made in marriage, check out my blog at markmerrill.com. Remember, your family first.
Family Minute is made possible by the Kappa Nu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a non-profit organization committed to service to all mankind. Kappa Nu Omega Alpha Kappa Alpha on Facebook and KNOMEGA1908.com.
Family Minute is brought to you by the Gears Foundation, a nonprofit organization providing students with assistance in their academic and career pursuits. Gears Foundation on Facebook, Gears_Inc. on Instagram, and the Gears Foundation at gmail.com.
KLEK thanks CJ Pepper and the staff of Life Strategies Counseling Incorporated for helping people through hard times in life such as depression, family issues, stress, abuse, and more. They offer counseling and therapy for all ages, individuals, families, and groups. They are located at 1217 Stone Street. Phone number 1-866-972-1268 or online at lscihelp.com.
Teresa Beck, owner of Full Sun Gifts, 606 Southwest Drive in Jonesboro, is a proud supporter of KLEK. Full Sun Gifts offers a variety of gift ideas such as candles, fragrances, bath and body products, makeup, cosmetics, skincare, and more. for birthdays, weddings, holidays, and all occasions. Details at Full Sun Gifts on Facebook and Instagram and 870-974-8480.
The McDaniel Law Firm, 400 South Main Street in Jonesboro, is a firm believer in justice and equality for the minority community. The McDaniel Law Firm has fought for our rights for over 44 years. The McDaniel Law Firm offers legal help for wrongful death as well as trucking and automobile accidents. Bobby and Brett McDaniel are available for a free consultation at 870-336-4747 or at www.mcdaniellawyers.com.
Hello, I'm Officer Victoria Evans. I have always had a desire to help others in need and to be an example and role model to young women by encouraging them to never give up on their dreams. My dream was to become a police officer and to serve my community. In 2016, that dream became a reality, and it is the most rewarding experience of my life. Now I want to let you know about the same opportunity. The Jonesboro Police Department will conduct testing every month for patrol officers. Applications are available online at jonesboropolice.com or at the Police Department, 1001 South Caraway Work. The Jonesboro Police Department offers a competitive salary, health, and retirement benefits, top-of-the-line training, and most importantly, the chance to make a difference in the Jonesboro community. Join me in making Jonesboro a better place. The Jonesboro Police Department is an equal opportunity employer, and women and minorities are especially encouraged to apply. More information is available at 870-935-5657.
The Epic Center, located at 1899 Hasbrook Road, County Road 333, is Jonesboro's newest venue for entertainment for the entire family. They offer an auditorium with theater-style seating for up to 1,100 guests, a large stage, professional lighting and sound, dressing rooms, concessions, and more. Available for weddings, concerts, pageants, birthday parties, showers, and more. Booking and other information is available at Epic Center Jonesboro on Facebook, epiccenterjonesboro.com, and at 870-530-5841.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
All right, welcome back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. I'm your host, Kabila Jones, and my guest today is Miss Jackie Bricker from Arkansas State University from the Occupational Therapy Department. We have been talking about autism, and we're going to continue our conversation. I hope I can ask the right questions so that we can get the most beneficial information out there. I love doing these type of talks on different health and social awareness issues so that people can become more educated, so that they can become an advocate. We need more advocates in the world. We need people that are not afraid to raise their voice and raise awareness for the different issues. One thing about autism is, even though these individuals may display different behaviors than you, that doesn't make them quote unquote different or less capable. They just operate and function a little differently from you. And we're going to get back into our conversation. So as Miss Jessie mentioned earlier, she has a child that has been diagnosed with autism, and before we went to break, we were talking about, I asked her about parents, families joining quote-unquote support groups or other community, I want to call them communities, of other families, so that they can get the support they need and know that they're not the only ones dealing with that particular issue. What has life been like for you as a parent, and then for the rest of the child's siblings?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been interesting, definitely different than I thought. Different than I thought parenting would be. Okay. You know, when you kind of imagine what it's going to be like to raise your kids, and the things that you hope for them in their life. You know, sometimes when you have a child that is diagnosed with something that's going to cause maybe some long-term challenges, whatever that is, it doesn't matter if it's medical or something to do with cognitive ability or development. I think one of the things that's distinctly different about that experience as a parent is that it can cause you to go through some grief. Okay. You know, when you're thinking about like when you have a baby and you're holding that baby for the first time, maybe in the hospital or something, most parents have that experience where you're not right, you're in that moment, but you're also in the moment where they might drive a car for the first time and graduate from high school and go to college and get married. I mean, you almost see it like all the way to, you know, I'm going to be a grandmother someday. You know, like you have all those feelings in that encapsulated sort of in that one moment. And I think that one of the things that's challenging about having, you know, somebody in your family that, you know, is going to struggle with things, you know, for a while, I think that it can be one of those things where it's like, just because that trajectory of life changes for them, you know, you can, it's what you do with that information. Okay. You can either take that and feel devastated in it, and I think most people just do initially feel devastated in that because it's not what I planned. You know, and anytime things don't go as planned, you know, that's hard to accept sometimes. But I think over time, what's important is that you come to realize that just because it's not the way I planned doesn't mean it won't be equally as great or even better than what I planned. And so it's just it's in how you come to terms with that. And I think most parents struggle with that because as that child grows, you know, it's when they're in second grade and they don't get invited to the pizza party, and then they're in fifth grade and they don't get invited to the slumber party, and then they're not invited to the dance, or they're not invited to the, you know, or they can't get their first job, or they can't drive a car at 16. And so there are those moments where the things that we consider in our culture to be sort of like the rite of passage to that next developmental stage, they may not happen on the same developmental path that everyone else follows, and those can be little moments of grief, you know, things that are hard to accept. But I think over time it gets easier, and kids do grow and they do develop and they do amazing things, things that you never thought they would do. And so it comes with great joy as well as great challenge sometimes.
How old is your child?
He's 12.
He's 12. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us a little bit more about when you first recognized the signs, or the pediatrician, and, you know, what was it like in the very beginning?
Well, I've been an occupational therapist longer than I've been a parent. Okay. And I was specializing in sensory processing disorders and autism long before I had children. And it's sort of funny because, you know, people always, when you're a therapist and you start to have kids and you work in pediatrics, be like, oh, you're just therapizing your child, you know, stop working on their milestones so hard, you know. And so there was a lot of that sort of thing where I think I kind of knew for a long time before we got to a place where we were ready to go ahead with a formal evaluation. Okay. But, you know, I think too, he is the same kid that he was the day before. Oh. Nothing, you know, just because we had a diagnosis. The diagnosis for us was more of a way to get him the help he needed and the supports that he needed, because those supports are very important early on in life, and they're also distinctly different from the supports that you would give a child that might have a different developmental diagnosis of some kind. So the supports that work in autism are a very different approach, and so it was important for us to get access to services that we knew would help him, and to be very targeted on the things that he really needed to work on just individually for where his strengths and weaknesses were. And so that was why we went ahead and did that. But I think in large part it's he's been an amazing blessing for our family, and his I think all of us are different people because we know him, and he's with us.
So is he self-aware of what's, you know, going on, or what? And to piggyback off of that, I know you said that, you know, he's the same person before and after the diagnosis. Has anything changed at school, or with peers and administrators?
Yeah, I think he's hit his definite trouble spots as he's gone along in school with different aspects of social, you know, the social elements of school. Okay. And I think that all kids have that to an extent. Yes. I mean, I think really right now his biggest issue is that he is in the throes of puberty more than anything else. But but I think that I think if I were to kind of try to sum it up, the thing that he has struggled with the most is when things change. Okay. So when social relationships change, just naturally and normally as part of growing up, you go from having a big group of friends and everybody loves each other and hugs each other in the first grade to, in the third grade we don't do that. And then in the fifth grade, boys don't really play with girls, and things like that. Like, he's a little bit slow on the uptake on those kinds of situations, and that causes him some drama at school. But I think that he is a really interesting person, and he has so much to offer. And so when people give him a chance, he's one of the most loyal friends somebody could ever have. So, yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. We have a Facebook comment from Miss Kara Maxwell. She says, my daughter was misdiagnosed as ADD and ADHD for a year and a half. She was just diagnosed with autism. How often is it autistic children are misdiagnosed?
I think that it does happen, and it especially, there's a lot in the literature right now, if you look at different studies about how difficult it is to diagnose high-functioning autism in females. And that's a little bit because their social interaction characteristics are different, and the way that autism is expressed in a female who's doesn't have any intellectual impairment is a little bit different than the things that we typically look for when we diagnose. And so it can be mischaracterized sometimes as ADHD, or sometimes even I've seen it as OCD or anxiety or social anxiety. Some of those diagnoses oftentimes are kind of prevalent, and those strategies that we might use to treat someone with those disorders might be distinctly different from what someone actually needs if they are on the autism spectrum. And so I'm glad that parent continued to pursue answers for her daughter. I think that's wonderful, and I think as a parent, that's one of the things that's hardest, is that we have to continue being the advocate for our child long past when most people sort of let their kid voice their own opinion. And so I think that can be one of the challenges, and that's another reason why it's important for people to belong to a community of support, whether it's your family or your close friends or other parents who go through similar experiences.
Thank you. I had a thought. Oh, okay. Do you feel, because of your profession and what you have witnessed and experienced, especially firsthand, do you feel that higher institutions of learning, just like college or technical schools or certification programs, can add a little more tweak their programs a little more to introduce students who are going to be working in certain fields, like teachers, administrators, or anyone that's going to be working with children? Do you feel that they could use a little more, I just say training, but introduction, education, exposure to not just autism, but all types of other disorders that are cognitive, behavioral, so that children aren't mislabeled and misdiagnosed?
Yeah, I think that it's important to recognize that a diagnosis is not a definition of a person, and that it doesn't become part of their identity. The real reason we do any kind of diagnostic work is to find out if there are underlying deficits that need therapy or medication or any kind of intervention that's above and beyond what someone else might need in order for them to best take advantage of learning opportunities or work opportunities. And so the diagnosis itself is there for that purpose, and should be treated as something that helps describe what that person needs instead of a part of their identifier. And so I think that what I would like is if we just did more disability awareness training in general for all educators and for all business people. One of the things I'm really interested in is workplace culture, and how do we help create an idea around universal design for cognitive disabilities or social emotional differences or communication differences, just in our general workplace. Most of disability can be seen as a social construct. the thing that makes people feel disabled is that they don't have a good fit between what they're trying to do and the environment that they're trying to do it in and the people that they're around. And so that's something that I'm really interested in exploring.
It sounds like you were spying on me and Dr. Christine's conversation. When I first met her, we had that conversation, and it kind of sparked, it did spark something within me, because I deal with a disability that some people may not recognize as a disability. Right. But I see so many other people that they face challenges, and because of that, they become isolated at home. They only go to certain places, and I can speak on that because I was there at one point in my life. So I hate to see anyone with any disorder, any disability, anything, feel isolated from the community in which they live, because they feel like they can't participate because things are not accessible to them. Mm-hmm. And it's not about sympathy. I'm sure the last thing anyone, especially people with autism, I've been watching a lot of different videos with adults with autism and how they are thriving in their everyday lives. Mm-hmm. There are many businesses that are popping up that employ only.
That's right.
The business was created especially to employ people with disorders or autism or whatever else they may be dealing with, to give them to help them have a sense of belonging.
That's right. That's very important for all people, and I think that's one of the hardest things to understand about autism, is because on the outside, someone's behavior may not indicate that they are interested in what is going on around them, and that is certainly not the case. Most people on the autism spectrum want the same things that all people want. Adolescents who are autistic, they want to drive a car. They want to have girlfriends and boyfriends. They want to get married and have children and have a job that they love. And they want all the same things that everybody wants, but they may not respond and interact socially the way that everybody else does. And so one of the common misconceptions is that, when you're talking with somebody, if they turn away from you and they're not making eye contact, and then they start to interrupt you or change the subject to something that they're more interested in talking about, right, that they're not really interested in belonging. And that is not the case. And so they may need some assistance in how to navigate those kinds of social interactions. But if you even just thought about what are the hidden rules of how you go to work, like at the water cooler at break time, these are the strategies for having a conversation in the break room, or this is how you resolve conflict with a coworker. Those are things that individuals who have social communication differences, who are on the autism spectrum, may need some specific accommodations and supports for, and that's okay. And that's that can be part of work culture, to recognize that people do it differently, and that's fine.
Yes, ma'am. I remember last year, St. Bernard's partnered with other agencies around Arkansas to create a training program for individuals with developmental disabilities, to prepare them to go into the workforce. Through this training program, they also learned about budgeting, how to manage a household. Like, they prepared them for almost every aspect that they could, so that once they were done with the program, they could move into almost any job. They also partnered with various companies that would employ these individuals after the training program. So I would love to see that people with autism, anyone that may have a developmental disability, delay, or some kind of, whatever the case may be. I apologize again for the language.
Yeah, that's okay.
I would love to see more of these programs in place to help these individuals. Like I said, they want to live a normal life, and I'm trying to stray away from that word normal, because that means something different. Normal is not really universal anymore. It means something different to everyone.
Right.
They're just trying to live their best life possible in whatever state they're in. And so I would love to see more, not sympathy, but empathy for these individuals. Allow them to navigate the world on their own terms. And you just be a support for them, be a guide, be a friend.
Yeah.
Like you said, they want the same things that we want. Someone who understands and someone who's friendly. It can help them navigate the world.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I think maybe the program that you were talking about is Project Search. Is that the one you're thinking of? Yeah, Project Search is a wonderful asset in our community that serves individuals with all different disabilities. But autism is one of the disabilities that is served, and their program is at St. Bernard's. That's the host business where those interns can go and get job training, and that partnership is through Project Search, which is an international model for how to train people in work-related skills, and they partner with Access Incorporated here in Arkansas to administer that program. It's a wonderful thing. I would recommend anybody who's interested in that to go to the Project Search Arkansas website for more information, because that is an excellent opportunity for individuals with autism or with any disability to get some support in the workforce. Absolutely.
Wonderful. All right, so we have about a minute or so before our break again. I just want to get into with your son. Have you had the opportunity to meet other families and allow him to interact with other children closer to his age that have been diagnosed with autism?
Yes, he has had plenty of opportunities to meet all kinds of people, autistic and not, and he really prefers to be with we call them neurotypical people without autism. He prefers to be around neurotypical peers more than he does other individuals with autism, and it's kind of a personal preference on just where he is and his acceptance of his own differences, I think. But he's still really young. And so I think the thing to remember is even with other individuals who might identify as having autism, because it's such an individualized expression of autism that two individuals with autism may not have a lot in common.
I understand.
And so the things that they struggle with, the things that they enjoy might be completely different, and they might still carry the same diagnostic label as autism. So it just kind of depends on the individual. But yeah.
So have you? I know we're getting ready to go to break, and we can finish this up. But have you noticed any special interests he may have?
Yes, he loves music. He's really good at hearing rhythms. He's got a very keen sense of hearing, and we've always joked that he has a superpower in maps. I will never ever lose my car anywhere as long as he is with me. So he's really good at navigating.
All right, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these announcements.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
We're back with Money Matters. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. It's important that you recognize and guard against the 7 deadly sins of money management. Today, we'll cover lust and pride. Lust. This is when you spend for the pure joy of it. When you're willing to lie, cheat, go into debt, and even steal to shop, that's lust. Another sign. After the highs of spending, you're hit with the lows of guilt. Pride. We're often guilty of pride in 2 ways. One is when we're too prideful to admit that we're in deep financial trouble and we won't reach out for help, whether that means getting credit counseling or just admitting to your spouse or your kids that you really can't afford this expensive stuff they want. The other side of pride is not being able to say to yourself, I can't afford this right now. A lot of people feel that this admission means that they failed themselves in some way. Swallow your pride and focus on what you can afford. Never be ashamed to live within your means. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. for Money Matters, a product of American Urban Radio Networks.
Money Matters is made possible by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a nonprofit organization dedicated to uncompromising commitment to communities, service, leadership, empowerment. www.jonesboroalumnidst.org.
Money Matters is brought to you by the Gears Foundation, a nonprofit organization providing students with assistance in their academic and career pursuits. Gears Foundation on Facebook, Gears_Inc. on Instagram, and the Gears Foundation at gmail.com.
Money Matters is brought to you by Bancorp South, offering checking, savings, loans, credit cards, and wealth management. 5 locations in Jonesboro to serve you. www.bancorpsouth.com or 870-972-9800.
Meineke of Jonesboro is now Starks Auto Service, a full-service auto repair and vehicle maintenance center offering engine and transmission repair, brake service, tires, oil changes, and more, performed by ASE certified mechanics. The all-new Starks Auto Service, 2813 South Caraway Road in Jonesboro, 870-204-7112. Starks Auto Service, Jonesboro.com.
The Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated was established on January 1st, 1977, originally serving Blytheville, Arkansas, and now serving Jonesboro, Blytheville, Osceola, Marion, and West Memphis, Arkansas. Today, the chapter continues to make an impact by focusing on Alpha's national community outreach initiatives such as My Brother's Keeper, A Voteless People is a Hopeless People, Go to High School, Go to College, Project Alpha, Boy Scouts, and the March of Dimes. The Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is committed to Alpha's mission of developing leaders, promoting brotherhood and academic excellence, while providing service and advocacy to the community. More information about the Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is available at MOL Alphas on Facebook or via email at molalphas@gmail.com.
Hey ladies, it's Nettie Jones, the girlfriend's therapist. I'm here with my girls, Elise Lyles and Brianna Hill, the Fab Squad.
Hey!
We're coming to Jonesboro, KLEK 102.5 FM. So tune in every Wednesday from 10 to 11 to Your Life with Nettie Jones. We're living it fabulously every day. You don't want to miss it.
Tell a friend.
House of Details, located at 3217 Herb Street, Suite C, is a proud supporter of KLEK, offering detailing on any type of vehicle: waxing, clear coat protection, basic wash, hand wash, shampoo, interior cleaning, buffering, headlight restoration, pickup, delivery, and more. With a motto of, anything mean, we can clean. Details available via Quentin Bogard at 870-273-5187. House of Details on Facebook and houseofdetailsjonesboro.com.
We at KLEK would like to extend a sincere thank you to all of our underwriters and sponsors. If you would like to sponsor or underwrite our programming and help us to educate, entertain, and empower the community, our number is 870-203-9951. Our email address is klek1025fm@gmail.com. The website address is klekfm.org. Again, thank you for listening.
Support for KLEK is brought to you by
Fullness of Joy Ministries, 2120 Thorn Street, Jonesboro, under the direction of Bishop Adrian Rogers and co-pastor Susan Rogers. www.fjministries.org.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
Welcome back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. I'm your host, Kabila Jones, and my very special guest is Miss Jessie Bricker from Arkansas State University. We have been talking all things autism today. I hope that you all have gotten some great information out of this conversation. I hope that you have been inspired to do more education, more reading, and become an advocate. Even if you have no one in your direct family, I'm sure you've come across someone at some point in your life who has had autism, or you have a friend of a friend or someone. So please consider becoming an advocate for other individuals with autism so that we can raise awareness and, you know, just be a better community overall. So I'm not going to take up much more of your time. I'm going to let Miss Jessie have these last moments and share any final thoughts, information, educational points concerning autism.
Well, thank you very much for having me today. This has been a really fun conversation, and I think that one of the best things we can do just generally as community members is to not judge a book by its cover, and to kind of think about you know, in our daily interactions with individuals, how many times we're making assumptions about a person based on a very brief interaction, or maybe even just their appearance, their outward behaviors, and just thinking about, you know, just being aware of what our initial thought is, and then asking ourselves, is that really true, and do I know it to be true? Is it universally true? Okay. And I think that that's, you know, it kind of speaks to cultural awareness in general, right? But autism itself can be considered a culture, and when we think about neurodiversity as a concept, neurodiversity is a way to express variability in human behavior that is natural and normal. And if we started to think about autism as a natural part of the human experience, then it wouldn't be a question of who was neurologically healthy and neurologically disordered. And so if you think about the power in that, I think that there's so much we have that we can do just within our own community to just be acceptance, you know, just to raise acceptance and awareness of, you know, different behaviors, different communication strategies, different interests, different ways of walking through life, and to acknowledge that we all benefit from that there are strengths in every person that can benefit our community, and we just need to give people access and opportunity to shine.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. What advice would you give to parents whose child is maybe newly diagnosed, or they're several years in, but they're still experiencing some of those frustrating moments, either with outbursts or, you know, some behavioral issues that they haven't quite got under control? What is some advice you would give to them?
I think that it's important to really try to understand a behavioral challenge as a sign or a symptom of something underlying it that's causing distress, and to try to get at that particular issue. I think it's behavioral interventions are very effective for individuals on this spectrum, but first you have to make sure that there's nothing else that can cause that behavior. So I once had a nonverbal autistic girl who had migraine headaches, and she was headbanging, and it wasn't until her medical issue was diagnosed that she stopped headbanging. So don't necessarily assume that a behavioral issue is just behavior. A lot of times those behaviors are trying to tell us something. Okay. So that can be really challenging and requires patience, but just keep advocating for your child, and make sure they're getting the medical treatment that they would get even if they were neurotypical and exhibiting some of the same symptoms. So really talking to your providers about, you know, just, you know, if you were having reflux or if you're having issues with sleep, those are really important to get medically addressed before you try to behaviorally intervene.
Right. Well, I can't thank you enough for giving us your time today and sharing this valuable information. I would like to direct people to go to www.autismspeaks.org. There's a lot of information there that's very valuable. Do you have any other resources you can suggest?
I think I mentioned the projectsearcharkansas.org website is really good for those families who are thinking about transition into adult life. That can be a great resource. Here in Arkansas, we have AANEA, which is the Autism Association of Northeast Arkansas. Okay. They have a website and a Facebook page, and that's a great resource for newly diagnosed families especially, but any family that has has an autistic child that needs some support, they have a support group and other resources as well. I think they even have a library and some resources in their office that parents can access. So,
all right. Don't feel like you are alone. Any of you out there that may have children, or your children are transitioning to teenhood or adulthood, don't feel like you are alone. There are other families out there that are dealing with the same thing. And don't be afraid to get support. Join a community of other families that are dealing with the same issues. You never know how much it can lighten your burden. So don't be afraid to speak up and speak out. Let's educate ourselves and advocate for someone we love. Thank you for tuning into Community Conversations. Have
Thank you for listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council,